either asleep or less. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the Vermont House Appropriations Committee. It is Thursday, January 19th, 2023. It's a little after 8:30 as we all settling in to hear from JFO this morning. First thing, kind of taking a look at what I hope will be, kind of a useful document, information, especially going into when we start looking at agreeing or making changes to what we've heard over the last time. So welcome, but just know we'll take a break, and then at 9:45, I hope, or maybe earlier, and then we're going to hear at 10 o'clock. We have in the room the authors of the RAND Child Care Report that are with us from 10 until we go to just about 11:30, and then we'll hear from Public Safety. Public Safety or Public Service? Public Safety. All right. That's our lineup for this morning. So, and then this afternoon we have public hearing. Still room to sign up out there if you really want to talk to us. All right. With that, I want to say Mrs. Clark, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Chair. For the record, my name is Sarah Clark. I'm the Deputy Fiscal Officer with the Joint Fiscal Office. This morning, I'm going to provide a little bit of context for the FY23 budget adjustment. We're going to drill a little bit into the topics carry forward and really just have a conversation about marking up and making decisions on the budget adjustment. Mary did provide for you some handouts of what I'm going to walk you through. It's really small, and you'll see I have nice sheets for myself. So I was thinking I could project on the screen if that's useful, or if not, you can just look at your papers, whatever works best. We're not going to be down in the weeds on the papers too much, but I know it can be hard to read. So,
Minnie, what's your
Aaron
pleasure?
did post it, so you can bring it up on your
okay.
iPad and then blow it up if that's easier.
Probably easier to do that than seeing it on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're good. People can use their iPads or write on their paper or.
Great.
Okay.
So let's start with the sheet that's labeled at the top, fiscal year 2023 budget adjustment HAC, which is House Appropriations Committee markup as of January 18th, 2023. At the top of the page, I'm trying to set some context for the 23 budget adjustment focusing on the expenditures that were proposed in the Governor Recommend proposal that we received, I guess, about 2 weeks ago now. In addition, as you know, the Emergency Board met on Tuesday of this week and established consensus forecasts for the major funds for both the year that we're in right now, fiscal year 23, and then looking out into the future. And so we are still working, reconciling those revenue forecast updates and putting them in the context not only of the budget adjustment, but also looking forward to the 24 budget that we will receive from the governor tomorrow. And so we'll have more discussion about the revenue side of things at a future date. So looking at this sheet at the top, you'll see where I have governor proposed appropriation adjustments. This is all focused on the general fund. And so you'll see in what the governor proposed to us, there is a down of roughly $53 million. So that reflects savings on the general fund. So if you were to take Commissioner Gresham's detailed sheets and sum up all of the changes to the B sections in the department's base appropriations, that yields $53 million in general fund savings. So that's that top line number that you see there. Moving down, in addition, what the governor proposed for the budget adjustment for one-time adjustments is actually an increase on the general fund of $62.4 million. Those are changes being proposed primarily in the B1100 sections, which are one-time appropriations. And so when you look at the details and what Commissioner Gresham brought to this committee, it all sums up to an increased general fund need of $62.4 million. The next item I want to bring your attention to are reversions, additional reversions to the general fund that are being proposed in the governor recommend budget of a savings of $10.5 million. So essentially they provided for the committee a list of general fund appropriations that are no longer needed and therefore can be reverted back to the general fund. So that totals $10.5 million. And there is a detailed listing of what those reversions are in the materials that Commissioner Gresham provided.
Madam Chair.
Oh, please, go right ahead.
I just want to make sure that I understand the difference between the first line and the third line.
Oh, great question. So the first line are proposed reductions in general fund spending that you see sprinkled throughout the agencies and departments' proposed budget adjustment. The third line is actually more of a, I'll say, a revenue source, which are old general fund one-time appropriations or appropriations that were made for a specific purpose historically that are no longer needed and are therefore available as a source of revenue in the general fund.
Okay, thanks.
Madam Chair,
Yep, go
I
ahead.
am totally lost.
Well, let's
I'm
get
trying
back on track.
Working off this, or are we working off this?
Working off of,
Working off this?
yeah, but not that one, the second, that
page.
one, yes.
Okay.
Yep, right there at the top.
You go to the very top.
If you,
Just saw it. See, I didn't see it
53.
before. Okay.
Okay.
I was trying to go down. Yeah, right.
Reversion.
having trouble seeing it, because there, at the very beginning, I was saying that printing it on this size paper is a little difficult to read.
Yeah.
And Representative Harrison was saying that if you wanted to call it up on your iPad, I find it on the paper because I can make notes a
Yeah.
lot faster than I can on the computer.
Yeah, me too.
But
Just trying to figure out where the numbers were coming from, but the very top is not what I was looking at.
all
My
right,
apologies.
orient you to that because it's an extremely important part of this.
Yep. Why don't we walk through it again? That makes sense. If there aren't any other questions.
Because I was there too. Representative Schy has a question and then Representative Bloomley.
I was just
I'm not-
going to clarify on the reversions, that an example that I had a couple of them that were related to homeowner rebates and renter rebates. So in the budget every year, we estimate what we think those are going to be. And then when they aren't all used up, the rebates aren't all used up, the difference is reverted back to the general fund because it's a specific thing for a specific purpose. And we know by now that it's not going to be used. In this case, those weren't being used because income levels were higher, so fewer people qualified for income sensitivity on rebates for property tax, or they were getting other federal fund subsidies because of the pandemic, and so they didn't. That's what reversions are.
And
Are you good?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
also, then my question is, so for example, what do we call them? Staff savings, vacancy.
Vacancy savings.
Where does that fall? Is it in this third line or?
It would be in the first line. So I'm going to step us way back, I think, so that I can really give you the context. I've tried to distill in a few numbers to give you that really super big picture understanding of the governor's proposed budget.
You think maybe it would help to put it on the screen,
It might help, and I can,
orientate it on the paper?
so you know the documents that I'm looking at.
Right.
So let me share my screen.
And so what I think we'll get you to, and we'll just, before the end of the day, how about if we get you a bigger version of this?
Yes, and I should say, because I think I anticipated I was going to be walking you through on the screen, I will bring you as big a pieces of paper as I can in the future because all eyes could use that help.
And they're really, well, for some of us, they're very handy working documents as we make decisions as well.
Okay, so I am stepping way back to the materials that Commissioner Gresham provided to us originally. And so this is the spreadsheet that he walked us through, really appropriation by appropriation, of all of the changes that were being proposed in the governor recommend budget. And so as we go through this spreadsheet, and so you're all, I think I can see the folks down here have pulled that up. This is where the governor is proposing changes across multiple fund sources in the FY23 budget adjustment. What the sheet that I created is trying to distill for you just in like 3 key numbers where the governor came in with his budget adjustment. And so, and it only focuses on the general fund. You'll have to make some decisions on the other funds, but really focusing on the general fund is going to be one of the priorities of this committee. And so where I am on this sheet, I've taken you from, I think it's B100 down to B903. And if you were to sum all of the changes in this area right here, it's going to distill this minus 53,233,462 on the sheet that I provided to you. So it sums up all of the base budget adjustments being proposed on the general fund side. A number. A negative $53 million.
Which means more.
Yes, it means general fund savings. Yes, that's correct. I think I still see a little bit of confusion as I'm going through this, but I was really trying to take what Commissioner Gresham provided and just say, here's 3 numbers that sums it up. And so it's $53 million in general fund savings in the B sections. In addition, on Commissioner Gresham's sheet, he proposed several one-time expenditures and other appropriations, primarily in the B1100 sections, which is where we make one-time appropriations. So I'm showing you on the screen Commissioner Gresham's presentation of all of the various proposals for spending one-time funds, one-time appropriations. So this includes things such as the funding for the Southwestern Vermont Hospital new inpatient children's facility. It includes another $5 million for the VHIP program, among other items. And so when you sum all of those one-time proposals up, it yields $62.4 million in general fund expenditures. That's what the governor is proposing. And so that's what, when you go to my sheet, that $62.4 million reflects the one-time appropriations being proposed by the governor.
Representative Schott.
Thanks. Sarah, I'm looking at your second page that has this section. There are also some things from the D section that are showing up on here as well. And maybe you could remind us what the D section is and why they would be here also.
Sure. So the D section reflects transfers from one fund to another. And so what you see here, for example, so I'm back on Commissioner Gresham's sheet. So the first one I'll point you to, which is probably hard to read, so let me make it a little bit bigger. The first one, for example, is a transfer of funding from the general fund to the Emergency Relief Assistance Fund. So that's a special fund that has a revenue shortfall and therefore needs support from the general fund. So they're proposing to transfer money from the general fund into that special fund. And so that's what the D section reflects, are transfers between funds.
Maybe you can help, because when I look at this, every single time, at first it befuddles me, and then I get it, and then I look at it again, and I think, that doesn't, I wonder, why does it make sense that there's, in black, a positive if it's transferring from the general fund to the special fund, which is now red? Because you would think intuitively it would almost be backwards, but it's not. I know there's a good, can you help?
Yeah, so
Help us.
yeah, let's take the first one as an example. So it's a $2.1 million transfer of general fund to the Emergency Relief Assistance Fund. It's actually a $2.1 million expenditure of general fund dollars. So you're using general fund dollars in lieu of a special fund dollar that's experiencing a revenue shortfall. And so it's a use of general fund dollars, an expense.
Which is right
Is there black?
there. The government.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Double entry.
Yes.
You see it now? Yeah?
Does this get, I thought I understood this, but now I'm not sure I do. Does this get offset? Is there a reduction? No, it's an increase in the,
Yeah, it's an
it doesn't
increase.
come from, it doesn't come from one fund. I mean, it comes from the general fund, but there isn't a different account
No.
coming from. That's what.
Yeah, it's a use of general fund dollars. Yeah.
Yeah,
Offset.
that was why when I see those two, I go, wait, I'm not understanding, but then I understand. And then once again, I look and I go,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Representative Mahali.
So just one more time. So generally, black is uses, expenditures, transfers out.
Yep. It's a use of general fund.
It's a
Yep.
use. Red, it's transfers out, or another way of putting it in terms of ups and downs, it's a down.
It's a down.
Black, down. Red,
No black.
Black isn't up.
Down.
no,
Means we're spending.
Yeah.
and it's not a down.
Right.
It's an up.
It's an up. It's a use. The pressure.
Yeah, okay, the pressure, okay. Red is transfers in, if that ever occurred, savings, anything else that's going into the general fund for any reason, which would
Any
be
other fund.
the other fund, but in
Yeah.
this one,
Yep.
which is
So
down.
let me, one thing that I heard from you that that when you said, oh, the black is a down.
No, it's an up.
Yes, it's not a down in spending, but it is a down in our bottom line
Yeah,
because we're spending it.
yeah.
Down from the general.
It's just a convention, just trying to get,
I gotta,
It is. And I think you'll probably continue to check yourself as we go through, not just budget adjustment, but when the 24 budget comes, just like making sure we're orienting ourselves in the right way.
so I have to, if we're good with that, I want to go back one step, all right? Because if you're watching at home or here, you're rolled up savings from the B sections, 53.2 million, right? So if I go to sort of translate this to this, help me to find where is it on this page? It's at the bottom where it says, on the big spreadsheet is,
I just want to, I don't.
make sure I see 55 points.
So they didn't total it in the same way on the printout that you received. And so that's why it's a little bit harder to track. And so which is the other reason why I have this giant workbook now in Excel, because I'm looking at the sums. And so if you want to, and I don't know, it's kind of hard for you to.
Let's see if I get this right. So if you want to get that 53 and where it came from, you would take the totals of total human services column, which is negative 55.
Yeah.
Add, and then the total protections, total general government, but there wasn't anything, right? Is that where that?
Yeah, but there's a way that you can
Okay.
back into it, because
Yeah, you have to-
it's not just a clear number on their sheet, but if you were to take, let me go to his spreadsheet. It is on page. If you go to his spreadsheet on page 2. No, it's on page 3, so it should be on the back.
You're looking at the summary sheet, so
Yep, on his summary sheet that he walked us through.
Sorry, not the,
Yep.
you have more than one.
yeah, I know.
Yes, there's more than one. So it's the
match though,
summary.
shouldn't they?
It does all match. But just so you could do the math and you could see where, come up with those numbers.
This is helpful because if you're at home and you're looking at this, like, I can't match this up. I want you to be able to see where it came from.
Yep. on this sheet at the bottom, you're going to see a total one-time and other appropriations. So everyone's sheet looks a little bit different than mine, so that's not that helpful. But you're going to see a total one-time and other appropriations. And on the general fund side, you're going to see $56,769,000. It is this number right here on your screen. And so that's a total of one-time and other appropriations. Right below that number, you see total appropriation changes of $3,535,000. If you take the total appropriation changes, that $3.5 million, and you subtract out the $56.7 million, you're going to come up with that summary number, the negative 53 million that we talked about on the previous page.
There you go.
And so that's how you get to the number. And so
That's
on Adam's spreadsheet, just so you know, and it's not something that came through on the print, but down at the bottom of the spreadsheet, and I'm showing it on the screen, you're going to see where their internal check is yielding this $53 million number. So you see it's on the screen right now. But just the kind of the behind the scenes where GFO staff is reconciling the numbers, like that's where it is.
Right, and those two lines in the gray did not,
I did not, correct.
like the notes on your PowerPoint.
But we walked you through how you can get to that number doing the math on his sheet, which is what I am showing you on this FY23 budget adjustment context, trying to boil down all of those changes into these really three big numbers.
Yeah.
Four big numbers in the end, but.
Okay, let me review that. If you take the 56,000,
Yep. Or if you take the 3.5 million below
56
it.
million and minus the 3.535 million below it, it should come out to the 53,232,233.
Yeah, that's right. Little homework assignment, get the calculators out.
Which brings me to a point. Does everybody have a calculator? And if you don't, we'll talk later.
I think there's actually
On your
several over
phone.
there,
On your phone.
but yeah.
Not easy.
So
This is not only information as we're learning, we're also orientating. This is like also a 101 in the sheet. So I don't mind. I want to make sure that, I know the first time that everybody has what they need. When I went home with these two, I was trying to
yeah,
match up, which the truth is Sarah has it 99.99% of the time. And, but it's really good that you walk us through how you got that.
yep, no, I think it really is.
It does, it comes out.
And understanding how the sheets flow.
Because this is the big roll up for us. This committee, not only do we dig under and under and under, but in the big world, it's like, so what did you guys, what's the big picture? What happened?
Yep.
It's the big what happened.
Right.
Okay. So 53.2, savings in all the B sections.
Yep. Savings in all the B sections. And maybe why don't we stick to that number for
Minute.
a little bit. And if you go back to the sheet that I provided you today, which is the document that I anticipate we'll use when we mark up the big bill. So I've got it on the screen here. And so what you're looking at as we drill into the details, everybody understand where I am? So you're going to see this section here is all of the program adjustments by B section. There is a column that's for the Gov Rec, and it's been populated with the numbers from Adam's summary sheet with their general fund changes that they're proposing in the budget adjustment. You'll see the first one here is an increase to public safety, state police, that $1.9 billion general fund increase, which is primarily due to the changes in their collective bargaining agreement for the state troopers. And then so on. We move down the page section by section with each of the changes that the governor is proposing in the B sections to change general fund spending in the budget adjustment. And so I'm scrolling slowly down my list, and you'll see on my sheet a total program adjustments of that negative $53,233,000. That on the sheet that I prepared for you, you can see that number specifically called out.
A condensed manner.
Yes, yep,
Representative Shy.
Yeah. And so you have intentionally highlighted those three human services ones related to global commitment, which two of them are negative
yeah.
because we are getting federal funds, which means we don't need the to spend general funds on those because of the public health emergency that's continuing that we hadn't budgeted for.
Correct?
Right?
Yep.
I'm not sure about the third one for 18 million 9 that says all over. It's red, but it doesn't have parentheses around it.
So that's a formatting issue. So what I wanted, and thank you for noticing that. Because there are so many changes, the magnitude of changes being proposed in section B301, which is the Agency of Human Services Global Commitment Appropriation, we wanted to break it down into the kind of three primary drivers of that. So the first one, as Representative Shy referenced, is an $86 million general fund savings because of the enhanced FMAP is freeing up general fund dollars, and then they're drawing down federal funds. The next item is also, it's $36.8 million in general fund savings because the Agency of Human Services is relying on carry forward from 22 to 23 to offset some pressures in their global commitment appropriation that is spread throughout the agency because of the way the global commitment appropriation works. And so that's the second line that you see there, and we're going to talk a little bit more about carry forward. And then the next item, I just lumped in all other, because there are several other adjustments that are occurring on the general fund side in this global commitment appropriation, to include things like an update to the Medicaid caseload consensus process that's adopted with the Joint Fiscal Office and the administration. So that's one of the items creating pressure in their budget. But we thought it was important to break it out into these three components just for your understanding at a high level still.
And it should have a parentheses then. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it should. It's
Okay. That's,
yeah.
Okay.
It shouldn't be, it shouldn't, no, it shouldn't. It's a positive number. It should be black. It shouldn't.
Oh,
it should be.
That's the.
Oh, okay.
Double
Yeah,
negative.
exactly.
So the format is that if it's got the parentheses around it
Yeah.
and it is also in red, that means it's going back into
I don't
the,
know what just happened. Sorry.
It's a reduction in the,
going back into general fund.
Correct,
And
correct.
if it's just in red, or if it's in black with parentheses, it's savings or addition.
So no. So if it's a
No,
negative
yeah.
number in red, it is a general fund savings. It's a
Yes.
down.
Yes.
If it's black and a positive number, it's a general fund
Expenditure.
need. It's an expenditure.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you add,
Copy will get, that will be black. Right?
correct, I just changed it live on the
There you
screen.
go.
So, and so when you add up those three numbers within this one appropriation, it's a net general fund savings, general fund down of $104 million. And that's why we broke it out a little bit more. As you know, the Agency of Human Services provided to us their ups and downs document, which details this out even more layers. And so that's the document that I use quite a bit trying to understand the AHS budget.
DIVA comes with a narrative too, that's about 3 or 4 pages. That's
Extremely helpful.
that matches this as well.
Yep. Okay.
Helpful? Feeling helpful? Good.
And so this document is meant to, so we've laid out the GovRec, and then as you move over to the next columns, you'll see HAC, General Fund, so House Appropriations Committee. This is where I think Maria and I intend to, as we make decisions and move section by section, we will register either, we're concurring with the governor recommend, or perhaps we're making an adjustment to what they're proposing, either up or down. And so that's where we'll start kind of tracking these things so that we can have a real-time sense of our general fund position relative to what the governor proposed. And so this is your first view at this document that we'll spend some more time on together.
Right, and probably the bigger version we'll use maybe a little bit more as our.
Definitely.
Able to see it.
Definitely.
Yeah, Representative Scheid?
Yes, I'm looking at a couple that you have on here that have no numbers associated with them, one of which is mine, the Cannabis Control Board. So I'm just, and I know that there was actually, that was a transfer that was going to be happening in the D section. So I'm just wondering why it's on here. Is that just for your future bookkeeping of the?
So it's up here in B 240.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there because this, again, is just showing the general fund
Right.
impacts. And so that's why it's there without a change. I haven't removed it yet because we may, as we go through markup, we may want like an all other column so that if you were to make changes to that proposal, Maria and I would be tracking it in this all other column. And so I haven't removed them yet. And so I think that's a decision we can make.
It's fine. I
Makes sense.
had a reason.
Yeah. Yep. So that's, as I go through this list, all of the kind of the B sections, and then you'll see the negative $53 million that's referenced up above. And then if we move to the one-time expenditures and other appropriations, so again, this is looking at what the governor proposed in his budget adjustment for additional one-time appropriations, primarily in the B 1100 section. And so the first one here that he is proposing, we're not going to walk through all of these today. I'm just trying to orient you to what you see. So you see this B 1100 A24. That's the new proposed section. It's $3 million. And that is for the Rural Capacity Grant Program that we've been having discussions on this week. That's the first one. The next one is an appropriation to the Agency of Administration for the match on FEMA, the 10% match, now that the 100% match opportunity or 100% federal fund opportunity has gone away. And so on and so forth. It's just listing out all of the governor's proposals for one-time expenditures on the general fund side. It also includes, I'm moving down to the D101, which we just talked about. It also includes the transfers. So where the general fund, in this case, D101, the general fund is being transferred into the Emergency Relief Assistance Fund, that $2.1 million. That's a use of general fund dollars. And so if you sum all of these one-time appropriations and the transfers, you get this $62.4 million proposed expenditure of general fund dollars. And again, it ties up at the top, and you can see, because I have you can see on the screen the $62.4 million at the bottom, and then you can see it again at the top where I have the summary to give you that sense.
Yep, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Go ahead, my head was down there.
So I'm noticing that there are this B1101A1 and B1. There are no numbers assigned to them. The money comes from the special funds, and I'm just wondering why they're not in here.
Yes, so they're not in here because it's not a proposed use of general fund dollars. So it's what Representative Scheid was asking for.
I'm sorry, okay.
Nope, it's a great question. And we can figure out whether we want to take them out of here completely or.
There's activity going on, but not in general funds. Just
Yes.
keep that place you can go, yes.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
So the B 1100 numbers,
Yep.
we go to the very bottom. We have the total one-time and other appropriations, 56 million, approximately 56.7. And then under that, we have the transfers.
You're gonna get a big
Does that add up to
update with this sheet, black and white like that.
the one-time adjustment, 62 million?
So it does. So I think you're looking at Commissioner Gresham's original sheets. And so, yes, it does. It all ties out to what we're looking at on the screen right now in terms of the, it's just like making totals a little bit different than what the commissioner did.
Okay.
When she showed it like on yours, they had them.
I'm gonna have to see you after.
Yeah, we can walk through the spreadsheet together. Yeah.
So for that 62 million that we're spending on one-time and transfers, there is no corresponding calculation off of,
I don't think there is.
I don't.
Left a
Yeah.
line off,
Yeah.
another line that says total transfers. And he didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, to other.
It includes reversions, which is different.
Yeah, there was nothing in the D section that totaled the D section. So
Yeah.
So administration, if you're watching, that would be a great improvement.
Yeah, so you could tie it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way to tie it back.
A lot of like in this bucket, that bucket.
But we are tying, just rest assured, we will be tying with them, so.
So this is a very good picture. This is what I want Sarah to do, is to roll it up. We got all the underlining decisions, but some of the activity can be rolled up to say,
Yeah.
the savings in the B sections, 53 million. The governor's recommend is to spend 62 million. And so it's the 53 plus the 10 that gives them that ability to do so.
That's right.
And in the end, we're still under on general fund by 1.3.
Yep. And the way that we get there, again, we talked about going back up to my top level summary so we can tie out to Adam's bottom line. Representative Page, when you look at his total, like bottom for general fund, it's that negative $1.3 million. And so you're going to see that ties to my top level summary here. And the way that you get there is you also have to add in the additional reversions to the general fund they're proposing of the $10.5 million. And one of the documents that he provided to us is this listing of general fund reversions. And so I'm showing on the screen each of the appropriations where they are proposing to revert general fund dollars because it's no longer needed for its original anticipated purpose. And you can see that adds up here on the screen to the $10.5 million.
Where is that?
It's not in one of the handouts I gave you today. It's just the 10.5 million, but it is on the screen. I think it's one of the sheets that they've printed out. It was emailed over. So I brought one today, but it's just a detailed listing of the reversions, which is also, if you look at the language being proposed, you're going to see the reversions listed for language as well.
right, it's something on page 5 of
Edit.
language.
No, it wasn't asked.
So there is a line in the summary.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
And that's what nets to this net position of negative $1,337,000 on the general fund. So we're actually, the governor's proposed budget adjustment is spending $1.3 million less from a general fund perspective than the budget that was passed by the legislature last year.
We can do that as for a variety of reasons, whether we agree with or not. But a lot of.
That's right.
reasons. Is there anybody in line? I'm sorry, I got a little, okay. Representative Dolan?
Yeah, just to clarify something you mentioned 10 minutes ago. Where does you had mentioned that the 3.6 minus the 56.7 on page 3 arrives at that 53 million number, which is your top number, summary number. But where does the 3.5 come from? Because you already in the future lines, you're dealing with the one-time and the reversions, that number.
And the 3.5?
Yeah.
So that is on their spreadsheet. If you were to take, I don't think the problem is the way they've subtotaled it on their sheet. So if you were to take the subtotals for each of the sections of state government on their sheet, the general fund. So if you go to the first page of his worksheet, the general fund column, you'll see total protection. You see where there's like gray lines and it gives you a total protection 1.9 million. If you were to go through and add all of those subtotals up, it would yield the numbers that you see at 3 million. And the thing is, there's not a subtotal here of just the section adjustments. So it all happens kind of down below after you account for the one-time expenditures. That's why it's, on this sheet, you have to do a little bit of math to get to that.
If we're in Excel, for people that are used to
I
it,
could see the formula.
total, and you would see line, like B10 plus C12 plus, so you could go back and look to see where that number was calculated from. And it's not clear on here, which is why we have fabulous staff to dig in and find out and help us orientate us in this way. So don't feel like I'm not understanding. It is extremely confusing because it's not clear.
And and that's why, the document that we put together here that we're reviewing, the JFO document, does provide those totals by section. So you could, if you want in your calculator, you could go through and add up, as we just discussed, the subtotals for each of the areas of spending, and you'll come to these numbers. But that's why we've done it on this spreadsheet. It's just a different, it's not that the finance and management document is wrong. It's just a different way of categorizing things to help understand.
It's translation, and sometimes it's when you sit and you go like, okay, I want to do the math, not because I'm trying to prove anything wrong. I need to understand where this number came from, and once you do it a couple times, and when you see it in the future, it'll start, because this will be consistent.
Yeah.
This is not like an anomaly. This is how their finance system produces documents, and unless they want to have a discussion with ADS and others about getting a new system, we'll let them have that discussion. But in the meantime, you'll get something from somebody, and then you're going to try to translate what that is to the world that you have. And that's what we do a lot of in this room, is trying to bring that information across. So, all right, the number at the top, okay, so for the 53 million is the rolled up total savings from all the B sections, which includes any kind of programmatic changes, vacancy savings, and a variety of other maybe things that happen.
Yep.
We don't know underlining, like how much is from, we didn't buy donuts, so we have $18 left, or we have $10 million because we didn't hire the 12 people we should have in the office. So is there, you don't have to answer this right now. So what people will probably want to know at that next level when they're digging is trying to ferret that out.
Yeah, and I think, that's when we've been bringing in the departments and agencies, they've been walking us through in more details all of the changes that add up to their, one general fund change number. And so that's where the AHS ups and downs documents are really helpful to understand all of the changes.
Right. Representative Shaw.
Yeah, as somebody who always lives in fear of missing one of my numbers, sections in the budget, this is also a good way, that first page, to check the section numbers and say, is that one mine? And be sure you didn't forget one. It's not the only place your sections will show up, but it's one place to do a little check and say, are any of those mine?
And then you'll take it to the next level,
Because then we'll ask, why are they spending 10 million on this thing? And you'll.
Right.
And I think Commissioner Gresham's sheet is very helpful in that they do have that high level narrative associated with the proposed change. And so you can get a real quick snapshot of what's being proposed. You may choose for your sections to drill in a little bit deeper. But it's a good way to get a quick sense of what's being proposed and get your reaction, your thoughts on it. So.
Right. This is the big picture. And everyone in this room has their responsibility for that next level picture. Standing committees even more so, and agencies.
And I think both Maria and I are available. We've met with some of you if you want to walk through some of your sections. We're available to help you assist and understand what's being proposed. Depending on what your grouping is, there can be a lot of proposals for change that you need to try to understand.
Representative Mahaly.
I'm trying to, I get this.
Yep.
What I'm trying to understand is what it means. And what I think, and I'm going to just say this and tell me Am I wrong? If I'm asking, how innovative or aggressive is the government in terms of trying new things or doing new things or expanding programs? The overview can't really tell. Because, as I understand it, the appropriation adjustments consist of savings and expenditures. So new programs in all of these, there's new programs, new approaches, some in the appropriation adjustments, and a lot of them one time. So you just have to drill down, right?
You do have to drill down to understand everything that's being proposed to be changed. And I think some of what I would say are more initiative type of things in general, you're going to see in the one-times. And so we've talked about what some of those are. I think there are also some within specifically the Agency of Human Services budget. I think there's also some things that are maybe newer than is typical.
One-time. So if we had no one-time money,
Yes.
it would be a very different, I mean, we're using the one-time money to do new things rather than using
Base.
to do it.
They're proposing.
There are some,
We haven't done it yet. They're proposing some ideas.
that's what is being proposed, yeah, okay.
Yeah, which makes,
I'm just trying to,
yeah.
yeah.
I love it because I was thinking, if we had no one-time money, or in the past, we may have thought we were unbelievably opportunity if we had $10 million in one-time money, was unheard of an amount of money, right? And here we're sitting with one-time money that, for a variety of reasons, that we have, that we know is not last. It will not last any more beyond this next FY 24, 25. So there's an incredible responsibility and historic in this room about what we're going to do with that money that will imprint Vermont for decades.
So if I may just add one thing that really from a general fund perspective, remember, this is basically a net neutral general fund budget adjustment. It's actually down a little bit. We're spending a little bit less. That's what they're proposing. And the primary reason for that is the leveraging of federal funds, one-time federal funds, primarily in the Agency of Human Services through this enhanced federal medical assistance percentage, FMAP, opportunity.
So we have two tasks. Number one, understand why state government had this variation. Some of them are big because of good reasons, but some, would be in a normal year, we would be, concerned as to why we're off. So we've got the concern around the running of state government. And then we have the opportunity for longer term and short term investment to help Vermonters and Vermont use this as a launching pad to take care of some of the chronic issues that the state has and that we've seen. And that's what we'll ferret out. Yes, Representative Dickinson, and then Representative Mahaly.
The $1 million savings, $1.3 million, that's like a rounding error.
Yes, on a general fund, yes.
That's like what?
A rounding error on our budget.
We call it decimal dust.
We care about every dollar. We do.
But it's nice to have the savings.
Yes. Yeah. So it's good to see this. It's very helpful for me to be able to speak in shorter terms as to, well, what's happening? This is what's happening, but every one of the line items has got a lot of activity below it. And then at this big picture. I can't remember where I left off. I think it was Representative Mahaly. Then did you have your hand up? No, Representative Nolan and Representative Holcomb.
So
my paper.
Then, for overview, you just said something really interesting. I want to see if I understood it. So I'm just trying to think of ways to conceptualize this. We are paying,
We've got more to do.
from two sources primarily. One is one-time money, and two is Medicaid, extra Medicaid money we're getting because of the negotiated contract, which led to variations in FMAP. That,
No, well, FMAP was not negotiated. That was a bump
Yeah.
by the feds. And yeah,
That enhanced FMAP for the Medicaid program is something that all states have been able to leverage during the pandemic.
so that's the big red lines in the B sections. That's what's really
Yeah.
pushing, allowing it to come out positive. Otherwise, without that money, it would be way negative.
Right, if we were not leveraging those federal dollars, it'd be a different conversation and revenue source.
Right.
exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got Representative Dickinson, no, you good? Okay, oh, Dolan, sorry.
Thank you. And thank you. This is really helpful. I really appreciate it. Obviously, we've been drilled into our heads that one-time funding is for one-time uses. And yet, I imagine occasionally that spills over or through to that standard, but that's our goal. That's what we are intending to do. So wouldn't it make sense to look at last year's one-time funding in the, with respect to the general fund in the big budget to know whether we've been able to maintain that standard? For example, if we had used one-time monies for a certain purpose, but it's really a long-term need, then when we look at here, if we're still not addressing that long-term need and we've created new one-time uses, I think we've almost, we've suffered a little bit not having even that institutional memory.
Right, and this is, I agree. This is why we didn't, because we haven't been here for 4 years, knowing what the past and what we're rolling and what its path is. So we're at a little bit of a learning curve we're at the entry point, many of us, to that, because in 2-3 years from now, someone's going to say about something and you go, yeah, I know, we did that. And you'll just know it.
But it's not on the budget every.
But it's not on the budget every year, but you're going to know, and you're going to say, you'll just intuitively know, because you're going to get to really internalize the bigger budget as time goes on.
But at this point in time,
Right.
Yeah, we don't.
the access I walk around, I bring this home every night, the big budget. Hoping that through osmosis anyway.
The D section is going to show you all the investments, and the letter from the chairs on the letter of intent was so important for us, because there were things that they thought of, because there's a lot. And it's the enormousness of the whole thing was a lot. And I think they've done an incredible job over the years to get to here. But what I want to do is so we can continue to have that, but we have this to do. And I want to make sure that we've got time before childcare comes in to give at least around some of the reversions and some of the transfers or reversions, because some of them are pretty much not, I shouldn't say not a no-brainer, but no controversy, doesn't spark our going, well, that doesn't seem, because there are some that and you may be hearing, that we may want to either not accept or dig under hood a little bit more. But we haven't determined yet. There's reason where some line items have caused questions to be had. So I want to make sure that you have time for that. So right now, but this is really good. It's really important to orient it, because next week, if I put this sheet in front of you and we start making decisions, you need this moment to understand what this page is doing. So it's Representative Holcomb and then Representative Bloomley.
In the interest of time, I'll try to keep this short. I really appreciate the focus on drivers. And one of the things I find that's helpful is reinforcing what the drivers are. And one is clearly the FMAP. One is, and clearly we're using federal funds differently. One is clearly vacancy savings or one-time money, and I see vacancy as one time, which is we really need to think about. And then the last is need. And when you look at this and where the most significant drivers are, ups are, we have we have some problems. Like some people are doing well, and there's some people in the state who are really not doing well at all. And if you look at the increases for mental health, for family services division, for secure residential placement, the big items are all related to crisis services. And so on the one hand, some of our indicators look really healthy and positive. On the other hand, we're getting some serious red blinking lights that are going to drive down costs. Just had to say that.
Right, exactly, which is why we're in a really, I want you to imagine sitting here with no bump, with nothing, and the crisis.
Yes.
We have the ability to respond to the crisis that we would not have in any other year but this year, which is why it's so important for us to hug tight our money, because that crisis is not going away.
Yep.
And we're going to sit here in a couple of years where it will have a different, although I just have this incredible positive attitude. We always make it. We always balance. And we always, our goal is to address the crises that Vermonters are in the best way that we can, in the ability that they can pay for it. And that's what we balance. Representative Bloomley.
Well, Representative Dolan beat me to the punch. But I was wondering if at some point we could get kind of like a 5-year, look at the kind of one-time investments, or some kind of historical perspective, because that was the question I kept asking, because I can't keep last year's appropriations in my mind, and I've only been here 2 years, so.
It's the D section of the budget that passed last year is a big one, and the D sections of previous years. If you want to just focus on that.
That's a good idea. And the only other thing I'll note is the pandemic created very unusual circumstances in many ways. And so there were many of the one-time appropriations have actually been repeated a few times. And I think the reason for that is some of the one-time appropriations were for support through the pandemic in a variety of ways. And then I think that as the pandemic has prolonged, there's still been the need for those kind of one-time appropriations. But I would argue hopefully eventually that is no longer a need, but it remains to be seen. So I think what you're asking for does make sense.
Right. When we left here on March 13th, 2020, from this room, or not this room, but from this building, on that night, it was late, it was 8 o'clock. It was like, okay, we're gonna be gone for a week, maybe two while they clean, right? And I knew, I'm taking everything. I look like the banker. I'm surprised anybody got their right stuff. We were all at 8:30 throwing things in boxes because there's no way that I'm going to be home for a week without my materials, which turned into 2 years. All summer.
It was amazing.
September, rebudget again. Oh yeah, there's more. And then, yeah. Okay, so I have great admiration for the people that I've served with and have said, no mas. And we're on a new day. Okay, Lynn, or Representative.
I just want to say that, to add to that, what we took home with us or what we left in 2020.
Yeah.
Irrelevant, because we came back in
20.
May, it was all on Zoom.
Yeah.
We worked until October or whatever. I mean,
Right,
all
in
summer.
September, yeah.
and it was a whole different world.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did in 2020 is that we had to spend that money that year.
Right there, right now. Yeah, before December.
And it had to be done, it had to be out, it had to be spent, and it was done. And there was a boatload of money. And then we got into 2021. Now, one of the things that obviously I can see happening, we sit down and talk about one-time money. We spent a lot of money on one-time money that has expanded existing programs to balloon into all kinds of things. And everybody that got that money now wants to continue with that money, and we don't have that money going forward.
It's unwinding.
Universal meals for children, that's in the school. That's new, and that probably can't continue at $39 million or something. All the housing vouchers and all the stuff. I mean, we have those things, but it's not at the scale.
No.
And we won't have the money to do it. I mean, you could go right down the list, the FMAP. I mean, all of these things. So we have a responsibility
To unwind
to unwind it.
with this to the future. Yep.
Because we aren't going to have that money. We're going to go from an $8 million budget back to a $6 million budget. If we're
8
lucky.
billion, 8 billion.
Yes, billion, million and total.
Exactly, but on the way down, we could maybe, we've seen through this crisis, things that we've done that have worked. Things that we have been trying to do for decades, broadband, a lot of things that will come out on the better. Okay, all right, so aren't we glad we're here today and working? Yeah, we're gonna have a positive outlook.
Oh, yeah.
We good? Where are we? We're good in this process? And
Yes, are we good on this sheet? And
yeah, half an hour, 20 minutes.
it's funny, I think I jinxed myself because I thought I didn't even have a half an hour of material. So this has been a really helpful conversation. We could probably go all day. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is at a high level, and there's probably going to be more questions here too, but it's the carry forward process. And so I think, Aaron, should have been maybe 2 sheets. Was there one that has a bunch of words at the bottom?
Oh,
That was the second piece of paper. Aaron handed out.
that's the technical term, bunch of words at the bottom.
Words at the bottom.
That's,
I have this lovely giant sheet, so next time I will bring them over for you.
This one.
Yes, that one. And so I wanted to first talk about carry forward authority. So at the bottom of this sheet is the language that is in every budget adjustment, and this is what's being proposed by the governor for inclusion in the budget adjustment. It's language that authorizes the Secretary of Administration to approve general fund, transportation fund, education fund, et cetera, appropriations that remain unexpended at the end of the fiscal year on June 30th in the executive branch to be carried forward and designated for expenditure. And so that's what that part A of the language means. And then part B is similar, except for it's referring to the legislative and judicial branches, which the Secretary of Administration does not approve their carry forward, that it just carries forward any unspent balances, the general fund. So
this is the carry forward that's not happening? I'm sorry. I'll let you talk.
this is the language that gives the Secretary of Administration the ability to approve carry forward for any unspent balances. And these particular funds, the one that we're focusing on here right now, are general funds, because I think you recall Commissioner Gresham saying that this year, the closeout of state fiscal year 22, the year that just ended on June 30th, which was, I guess, 6 months ago now, it was an unprecedented amount of carry forward was available. And so just to step back a little bit and talk about the closeout process, the legislature makes appropriations for the agencies and departments to spend. It's across a variety of fund sources. You focus on the general fund. When the agencies and departments come to the end of the year, any unspent general fund, so that for what a variety of reasons wasn't spent during the year it was originally appropriated, they request to Commissioner Gresham and the Secretary of Administration the ability to carry forward those unspent general funds for very specific purposes. This year, as Commissioner Gresham said, it was an unprecedented amount of unspent general fund dollars. So I'm going to throw some big numbers at you. We did receive a spreadsheet from Finance and Management detailing the carry forward amounts, the amounts that were approved for carry forward, and then the amounts that are being proposed for reversion. And so state fiscal year 22, there was roughly $500 million of unspent general fund at the close of the year. That's a huge number.
And that's in just AHS?
No, that's across state government, unspent general fund. However, it's important to understand of that $500 million, roughly 300 million of that was for one-time appropriations. Okay, so that's not within a base budget. It's appropriated on a one-time basis for a very specific purpose. And we know because of the significant amounts of one-time general fund available, we've been making a lot of one-time appropriations. So of that $500 million, 300 million was for one-time appropriations. Of that 300 million of one-time appropriations, 266 million roughly were 22 appropriations, meaning that the agencies and departments didn't really have a lot of time to spend those appropriations. And as a matter of fact, some of those 266 FY22 one-time appropriations actually were made on a contingent basis, assuming that revenues would come in at the end of the year. And so those appropriations weren't actually funded or in the money until after the year had closed. And so I say that to give you some context to that unprecedented amount, and that it would have been totally expected because they actually didn't have the appropriation until after the money came in at the end of the year. So still a very high level of carry forward, but there are some very good reasons for that, and part of what I just referenced there. But wanted to give you that context.
And and at some point, that's where you're noodling around on that longer one.
Yeah.
You need to do a little more analysis
Yep.
on this carry forward and what was actually allowed to stay
Yes.
and why and how. And
Yes.
so we'll hopefully give you enough time to work on that so we can hear back.
Yeah.
But there's some within there that too are throwing some red flags.
Yep. Trying to understand that, because I know I've heard several of you ask questions about, well, why was this available? And so that's where it gets very complicated. And so I tried to just big picture. Some of them are appropriations that were just made. That's why it was available. Some of it gets a lot more in the weeds, and whether it's a vacancy savings, like a workforce issue, whether it's a caseload issue, those types of things, it just gets really down in the weeds really quickly.
Representative Scheid.
Thanks. So Sarah, looking at this page,
Yeah.
first of all, I'm observing that all of the carry forward on this page is from the Agency of Human Services.
Yes. So I wanted to start with the language, and then I'm going to talk about what's on this page.
Okay, I will wait.
I wanted to start big picture with what the carry forward is, how it comes about,
Okay.
what the process is, and then what's on the page if we're ready for me to go there. I think I heard several of you ask some questions as you reviewed the Agency of Human Services budgets. There was a lot of use of carry forward in their budget. And so I wanted to aggregate on this page how it was being proposed to be used within AHS's 23 budget adjustment request. And so that's what's detailed here.
And this is not the only, you're just,
It is
giving us a snapshot to
Of
get.
one, okay.
correct of one.
Because getting a spreadsheet with 500 or
Yes.
700 lines, we're going to look at just AHS's carry forward and how that works.
And I should be clear, this is only a snapshot of AHS's
Right.
carry forward.
Much more.
Because this is the carry forward where AHS through budget adjustment, is moving general fund dollars from one place to another. They don't have the ability to do that without the legislative appropriation process. And so that's what's being proposed by AHS, and it's detailed on this sheet. The other important thing to understand about this, so this all appears to be, $55 million is the total here, general fund savings. It's all net neutral because these dollars here, these savings in one area are being moved to another part of the agency to fund a need. And so that's really important for you to understand. And those of you that have these parts of the budget, it's something that you'll start seeing popping up, but that is what is being proposed here. And you can see a lot of the language, and I'm working to get a breakdown of, for example, the number at the top, the 36.8 million in the Secretary's Office Global Commitment Appropriation. That is being transferred out to a variety of different places in AHS, but I don't have that detailed accounting. And so
anybody who's listening or someone that's not as tuned in, when we're looking at this number is not lost. We're not taking it back. The administration is not proposing to take back 36 million out of it. They're saying this is carry forward that they want to carry forward.
carry forward and use for a
Use it.
purpose. Yep.
This is not the difference between carry forward, and I'm just doing this for reversion means it's coming back.
Yep, that's right.
or transfer is.
Yep. And this is just for those of you that have AHS, and I think useful for the whole committee to understand one of the components of their budget adjustment. This is just, here are the proposed transfers of that general fund carried forward authority. So you can see it all, 55 million.
I just don't want anybody to think, looking at this, oh my God, they're taking all.
No,
Yes.
not.
Nope. Nope. Representative Mahaly.
Again, just so I understand. So I understand what carry forward is.
Yeah.
These funds that are carried forward are being transferred out to another fund. Transferred to another fund.
Not to another fund, but to another department. For another use.
For another
It's
use.
still general fund.
Still within the general fund.
Yes.
And I understand that some carry forward unused funds end up as reversions. They're not used.
Yeah.
Is there any other use of carry forward besides being transferred either to another use in the general fund or being transferred out to a different fund?
They can hold it and use it with approval.
Yeah, with approval. So I think that's,
They can hold it.
yeah, so they have to ask permission of the Secretary of Administration to keep their carry forward. And they have to, as part of that process, they have to say, I'm going to use this carry forward to cover like the annualization of pay act costs. If they don't receive sufficient funding, they will use carry forward to cover the annualization of pay act costs. And they have to ask permission. If it's granted, it stays within their budget and they use it for that purpose. And you're not going to see that on this sheet.
Right. And
Yeah.
do we read section 34 such that the Secretary of Administration has final authority to make decisions about these carried forward such that we do not have discretion to change them?
He has the authority, let me see if I can, he has the authority within the executive branch, but then they must bring it here for our approval,
For our approval,
right?
right.
They might have already kept it. Because we already gave them authority.
Yeah.
And they're just being transparent here.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can you say that again?
So we gave them the authority when we did the 22 budget. You know, let's say you've got $1 million to do something, right? So we gave them the authority to do something. It didn't take $1 million, it took 900,000. So they've got 100,000 that they could either carry forward because they could use it. They can actually do that.
They can either carry forward, reversion. They can keep it with our permission.
Or keep it within there.
Our
Well,
permission or their permission? Do they decide to keep it for,
yeah,
job's not done, I want to keep that 100,000?
yes. And so they can do that.
Okay.
But then for transparency pieces, they let us know. Now we can have a
Reversion, it
conversation.
carries forward, or just, yes.
Inform
My
us.
understanding is that the one-time money, the ARPA money, all those, a lot of those are being upfront appropriated and obligated. Where do they come into this? Are they?
I think that's different. This is all B numbers. So this is standard-based government, not one time,
Okay.
not D.
Being a.
That's probably another topic of conversation is understanding all the.
That's one time, okay.
And then so there are times in which I'm hearing too, that there are programs, let's say, that, or whether it's one time or not, that was like the legislative intent was to do a positive, name it, X. We want to make sure that our workforce is developed. So we want to give a boost to a particular area so that they can
Nursing education.
whatever. So we've given that. So now we find out that, okay, it took 6 months to stand it up. They didn't use it. We gave them $1 million to do this. And they're coming back saying, well, you know, we don't need it, or it wasn't used. But we will find out it wasn't used because it was only in process for 2 months. So maybe we might want to say, yeah, I think we might want to keep that in there. We actually really want to incentivize X. So we don't want to take that back. And that's what we'll do. Go ahead, Representative Holcomb.
Just the one caveat, if carry it forward is being used on pay act, being used for the Pay Act obligations. I never had the experience of carry forward, so I don't understand this. I mean, my concern is what happens when you don't have carry forward, when the budgets are tighter. When you use one-time money, which is what I consider carry forward, to do ongoing operations, what you are doing is create a cliff at the other end of that, right? Am I right?
So you would only be using carry forward
For 1 year.
for 1 year on a one-time basis, right? So when you go to build the base budget, you have to budget the base funds
Right.
to absorb, to fund the prior year's Pay Act.
But routinely, we prayed and watched carry forward because we knew that was the only way we could fund Pay Act. As the budgets get tighter, that may become not possible for some agencies, I think is
Yeah, and I think you're raising some great points in that Pay Act is funded, it's its own bill, and there are general fund dollars that are appropriated to fund the Pay Act for the government. However, depending on your fund mix at your department or agency, you're not going to get a general fund dollar for every dollar that you need for Pay Act. So if you have a lot of federal funds, if you have a lot of special funds, those sources could be capped, meaning your revenue is not growing. So as your salary costs go up, you don't have federal and special funds that can support those costs. And so that creates this problem that Representative Holcomb is.
which is most acute for heavily federal, really what are federal agencies, not state agencies, like the Agency of Education, Department of Health, and some of the DCF.
Yeah, so every budget is a one-year budget. And I tell, as much as we try to plan out, and we do the Pay Act in the past, it's like, great, we were grateful that we actually had, or sometimes we had to, finding out the Pay Act was going to cost $20 million. So we had to sit here and find $20 million to take out of all the other budgets or places to fund it, which is tough work. It is 10 of 10, and I'd love for us to take a couple minutes before we have the RAND report.